Hello, everyone. We will be starting shortly. We're just going to wait for a few more uh, folks to join. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach. I am behind the IB WebEx account tonight. Thank you for joining tonight or this morning's presentation, Enhancing the IB Student Experience. This is part 1 of 3 in our strategies for broadening participation in the IB Diploma Program and Career-Related Program, or DP and CP, as you know. Before we begin, 2 housekeeping notes. One, this webinar will be recorded, so we can share with you afterwards and to send to all of our friends who are perhaps unable to join. And 2, if you have any questions during the presentation, please add them to the Q&A panel, and we will try to get to them at the end. Thank you so much, and now I'll introduce you to Phil Evans, Senior Manager at the IB, to get this started.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, everybody, for joining us in your morning if you're on the other side of the world from where we are right now. And we also have a featured guest joining us today from the Western International School of Shanghai. Welcome, Stuart Patterson.
Good morning, Phil. Thanks for that. Hi, everyone. My name is Stuart. I'm the IBCP coordinator at the Western International School of Shanghai. I've been in this role for just over 3 years now and been at the school for 4. This is actually my first international school that I've worked in, and I'm extremely lucky in that I landed in a 4-program IB World School for my first international teaching experience.
Awesome. It's great to have you, and it's especially great to have somebody pioneering the CP. There's a number of CP programs right across the world, and particularly through the Asia Pacific region. But we're very, very delighted that you're here and from a school that has all of the IB programs.
Thanks, Phil.
My name is Phil, as Zach indicated, and I'm a Senior Market Research Manager in a new team that was established in 2019 in its beginning stage and launched in 2020. We are looking at ways to support you as schools and to help the organization learn the sorts of things that we can put in place, strategies, tools, services that will help schools to attract students to the IB program. We're aware that that not everybody has IB schools that are wall-to-wall IB, like the school that Stuart comes from. And so we're dealing with a wide range of barriers, and we're going to explore some of those today. My contact information is here, and the landing page that you might have seen where you registered also has a form that you can complete if you'd like to reach out to me. You might also notice that there's an MYP tag there as well. I do have a colleague, Mary Tadros, who is based out of her home office in Jordan, who is working specifically on MYP and the innovative new, supporting schools with the new innovative e-assessment. So please reach out to us as we go through this cycle of working with individual schools to help them solve their problems and working out whether or not those are the sorts of things that are successful, scalable, and then able to be distributed. So to begin today, as we think about how we enhance the student experience, I just thought we'd visit some of the aligned enablers and barriers that we have. Obviously, students of all ages regard themselves as contributors to both the local and to the global context when they're IB students, and that's a real plus. Featuring their voices is a really big plus in encouraging other students to see how they can be successful in the IB as well. The facet of being multilingual carries not just the ability to speak languages, but to be interculturally minded and able to embrace not only your own identity, but the identity of others too. And throughout the IB program, we really focus on learning skills. And there are many authorities in the world today. One of them is the World Economic Forum with their jobs report, who are now starting to say that it's not just critical thinking and creative thinking and problem solving, complex problem solving skills, but active learning and learning strategies that are really important for the workplace in the future of these innovative industries. So some of the barriers that perhaps you're facing when it comes to how students are engaged in their learning experience is maybe around assessment. Maybe it's getting buy-in from teachers about how we assess students in the IB. I was an ex-IB teacher. I taught the diploma program, literature program course, and the Language B language acquisition course. And I know that there's so much to learn when it comes to how we implement and we guide students through assessment when we're used to providing a lot for them. That can have a big impact. Sometimes the students feel like they're very overloaded by the work that's required in the diploma program. And so through some reflective practices, we can enhance the student experience just by removing some of the clutter that may not be necessary. And I know that in this particular year, it has been very, very challenging for schools, for students. The stress levels have been high, but you know, this is a great opportunity for us to reevaluate what's important in education, as no doubt you've picked up on all of the waves across the world in the educational field. So, I mean, we know how important it is to be able to be equipped to go on to the next important aspect of our lives once we finish high school. University or college is the primary thing that we've been focused on for many years. It's the traditional approach, but more and more we're seeing industry recruiting students out of college and training them themselves. Big businesses like Apple and big tech like Apple and Google have talked about the sorts of innovators and thinkers and engineers that they're looking for, and that's something that we really pride ourselves in the IB, of developing the critical and creative thinkers. But shifting that culture around what we deem to be successful can be challenging, and it takes retelling the story, if you like. And so hopefully some of the things that we talk about today will help there too. Many of you are probably facing recruiting students into schools with competitive programs. And obviously that does really limit the growth planning and the impact on school structure, school culture rather, because I know that there are a lot of schools that have to equally promote the things that they're offering to the programs of study that they're offering to students. So it's difficult to tread that line. And so what we hope to do is to provide some food for thought and in ways that you can elevate the student experience so that students and parents see the value in an IB education and they self-select if that is one of the barriers that you're facing. So not often do we equate assessment with fun, but I honestly saw my students go from, the eye roll of we have to do something, we have to write a paper, to, oh, I'm really enjoying what we're doing now. I get to choose things. And so, looking at the way we talk about assessment and we talk about rigor is a really big, big part of enhancing the student experience. And I actually conducted quite an extensive round of market research to launch the work, and I got to visit some schools before the pandemic, literally in February, and the rest of it has been virtual. But I had the opportunity to speak to some students that had the opportunity and had considered the IB diploma program, but these are some of the reasons that they decided not to, and perhaps they resonate with you. Why would I do the full diploma, in a competitive situation when, if there are A levels that are available and the universities I'm interested in are going to accept those credits, why would I do all of the rest of that work? What's in it for me? I guess the perception or the message that often comes through, either through the student body or sometimes, unfortunately, even through teachers that really try to set high expectations, doing due diligence, but in some ways deter students from choosing the diploma program if it is a choice, just because students feel like they can't be kids, they can't take swimming, lessons or train in the morning, or they can't be part of a team sport that requires 1 or 2 nights of training and a game on the weekend. That can really be a deterrent if they feel like there isn't balance. And when it comes to the career-related program, it's a real challenge when it comes down to finding the CRS. And I'm really excited that that a little bit later on, Stuart's going to tell us about the career-related studies in the career-related program, CP, career-related program, for those of you who might not be familiar. But not always do we have those options. I've been working with some schools that they have found that students weren't really interested in what they had to offer, and trying to find those career-related studies can be a challenge. So in the IB, we certainly want to help schools to do that, and that can be a real opportunity. So again, here are some talking points for the students that might not know why they should do the full diploma or be engaged in the career-related program. We really need to start talking about the transdisciplinary nature of the world around us. That, in all of the technologies that we use around us, it's not just about the coding, it's not just about the science, it's about the usability, it's about the ethics, it's about the privacy, it's about the experience. So I think that in both programs, there's the approach to learning is helping students to make that connection. And so giving them examples of that and showing and making sure that that is part of your program, and the way that it's being implemented is key. Increasing the opportunities to develop learning strategies and partnering in that. A little bit later on, we'll dig into the approaches to learning framework, which is relatively new to the diploma and career-related program. It was something that started in the primary years program and eventually was adopted across all 4 programs. So it's, there's a really great opportunity here to help students to think beyond the next couple of years ahead of them. And will they be successful in college? Will they, sustain themselves in college? And will they be able to shift and pivot in the world around them as they move on into their adult lives? We know that students in the IB, that we provide so much more than just the credential. We know that alumni are the most university prepared students in the world. There are lots of studies that we have on file that have been conducted by a variety of really reputable universities that show us that. We also know that our alum are more likely to attend a 4-year university or to be accepted in selective universities than any other student in many contexts. And how we know the well-rounded and the being equipped to pursue highly technical fields. There's this sort of misconception sometimes from students that if I go the diploma route, that I'm not going to get to study my sciences, and I really want to go into engineering, or I want to go into medicine, and I'm better off doing something else because the diploma isn't going to help. That's a misnomer. Obviously, we've got a lot of students. In fact, I won't give the percentage that I have in my head because it was told to me verbatim. I haven't seen the facts, but there's a large proportion of IB students who send their transcripts off and are enrolling in STEM-related fields. And coming to that with the linguistic communication skills, the identity aspect of the IB, the intercultural understanding, just builds, the capacity to be successful and to stand out in ways that many other students have not had that kind of that foundation. We know that IB alum have learned to learn. That's the aspect of the IB program. We really have to help, all of our colleagues and teachers and work together across our networks to encourage that learning focus in our IB program. So it's not just lots of rigor and lots of, results. Because when we come out into the world as confident, curious, organized, and we're able to continue to develop those learning strategies, we're able to adapt, to those new opportunities that are ahead of us, and those things that are not yet created yet. So I don't know how you go about sharing alumni stories. We have lots and lots to choose from if you'd like to point at students all over the world. I had the privilege myself of talking to Tarek Brown when we wrote this feature on him. Tarek has an unusual story, had lots of support from his family from day one all the way through his foundational years in primary and elementary school. Coming up, he was invited to be part of an IB program, which was kind of a standard practice. But for students who had, maintained certain grades. And it was really an opportunity that he and his family hadn't, considered before. And Tarek told me that and he actually wrote in this testimony that he was homeless during the first year of college, first year of the diploma program, and really struggled, but the IB community really supported him, and that's that X factor of what it is to be part of such a value-driven, mission-driven educational program. So these are some of the things that he had to say, and similarly for the career-related program, Clara actually went to school in Geneva. She was actually she migrated from Spain. She had to learn English as well as study in an IB program. And now she's in the very prestigious University of Arts in London. And she talks very much about flipping that, the process from trying to get the grades to understanding the learning experience, and that those grades become the reward, they become the byproduct of our investment in our learning. So I'm very encouraged by the full story there. You can find all of those on our IB website. And just to touch on some research, this is looking at, how we can help students to see the value of their learning, beyond the courses and the classes and the results that they get, that well beyond, the admission into college, they will be equipped with the sorts of skills that they need to be successful, confident in their abilities, able to, internalize that strong achievement orientation. Many of our students in our schools, whether they're in the diploma program or the career-related program at all, they might be in another program in your school. We often attract, very driven students to our schools. We also have students that, in particular in the United States, with the third one in this series is going to be about access, inclusion, and equity, because there are lots of IB schools in the world where students would never have access to this high quality world-class education if they weren't in an IB school. And that presents its own challenges. I always have to gravitate to the mission because, there's the aspect of developing caring and compassionate lifelong learners says a lot. One, we're focused on learning, and two, it's much more than the academics. It's about being active in our community. It's about being compassionate. And all of the core elements of the IB programs from primary years through to DP and CP are oriented that the whole student is growing and developing. And so these are really, really important things to talk about. We may not always think to put the mission statement up when we're talking to parents and students about why IB, but really helping them to internalize the difference that it can make to be immersed in that kind of environment is key. So, I mean, we talked a minute ago about overloading students. I think we really have to internalize balance. We have to listen to students. Why might students be turning away from the IB program in our schools? What is it that we can do to work on? I certainly would love to hear some of your unique stories or individual stories. And, if they come together with the sorts of things that other schools are experiencing, it's highly likely that we'll be able to do something about those, together. Or at least partner with some schools that have similar situations. So, in terms of the IB assessment, and enriching the experience in assessment is key. Bringing all of those attributes of the IB learner profile, all of those attributes of the mission statement and the things that we've said earlier, how do we position that, and what are some of our leverage points? Students love to be able to be in the driver's seat of their education. They enjoy having flexibility and choice. And one of the misconceptions that we face is that the IB is rigid. The IB doesn't have a lot of room for flexibility and opportunity. That's where, you know, the various subjects and you know that are available within the IB subject groups can really be an opportunity to find the kinds of sciences or the kind of math, or maybe it's the humanities that really pair well with the foundational, you know, I guess the brand of your school or the focus of your school. Just today, I was talking to a CP school that's really focused on architecture and engineering, computer sciences, and they're staying in that field of, you know, design technology. And so one of the IB course, Design Technology, is a course that they're bringing into their school to be able to you know, provide their students with more of an opportunity to sink into that. And that elevates their individual identity as well as a school. Because the last thing that we want is for an IB school to feel that the IB is the overpowering element. Obviously, many of our schools have their own identity, and that is very, very important, obviously. So when it comes to the internal assessment, 10 to 15 hours of teaching time is suggested. And it used to be more, and in some subjects it says 25 hours of teaching time. But I thought I'd just pull this out because every time you go to a guide, no matter what subject it is, it says this is an opportunity for students to pursue a personal interest. So in order to get to that point, we have to backward think. You know, if we don't have the middle years program, if we have something else that we're using to prepare students for their IB experience, what are some of the things that they already know about themselves when it comes to their interest in math? Have they been exposed to, you know, a real world situation that they identify, oh, there's algorithms here, oh, there's these sorts of problems that we're trying to solve. This approach to thinking through this problem that would be mathematical as opposed to another discipline. You know, that self-efficacy is really important in the formative years. If we lose that in primary years, it's really hard to get back. But we do see that when students are able to pursue their interests and fuel those interests in their assessments, that it's really, really powerful. You know, conversations with students in that regard can really, really illuminate what it is that they're interested in and provide suggestions about how they can be successful. And I like here that it also says that it's woven into the normal classroom teaching and not to be really classified as a separate activity. You know, a project-based approach, a creative approach, helping the students to see that everything that they're doing is working towards this culminating internal assessment. And then in other parts of the course, there are other assessments that we're working towards. You know, introducing them up front can really help to enhance the student experience so that they feel like they've got a clear roadmap of where they're going. And many of you are probably already doing that. In terms of the 10 to 15 hours, you know, when is this taking place? What is it that we're focusing on? What is the extent, to what extent is it student driven? I'm guilty of this at the beginning, and it sort of was handed to me, you know, in a variety of different contexts, from the informal training to, you know, people talking around the table and saying that this is the way that you approach internal assessment. Give the kids some stems, or give them a whole list of the sorts of topics that they could pursue, and then get them to do the last, you know, point of making it an individual assignment. And I thought about that over my teaching years, and as I'm talking to schools now, and it's apparent that we are very, very you know, because it's so stressful and high stakes to be, you know, responsible for assessment and results, we tend to give the students a lot more and take it out of their hands. So as much as possible, what is it that we can do differently to make sure that it is student driven? And as I mentioned, how are we preparing students, you know, to be able to get to that point? In the next one, we're going to be in the next part of this series, which is next week. We are going to be focusing on marketing the IB, marketing the IB or Diploma and Career Related Program to your students. But I think that showcasing the work that students do, especially around choice, around, you know, areas of interest, whether or not it's virtually, whether or not it's on the walls of your school, when we're able to all be back in the physical environment. Just having students see, this is what I'm studying in biology, this is what I get to do in psychology, and this is what I'm reading about, or the issues, or what I'm interested in the literature or Lang and Lit component. It's always really great. We always display the artwork for the art students, obviously, because it's physical. But what are some creative ways that we can make the thinking visible so that our whole community, for parents and students, that they can see that as well? That really excites students when they can see that they've got that opportunity to study something of interest. So
Phil, so
jump in,
just just on that part, that's something that we've actually had massive success with. We actually have our current DP and CP students speak to our grade 10 students as they're making their course choices and program choices for moving into DP or CP, and having that opportunity to share the learning experience and show prospective students some of the work that they do within each class and within each different program and track option. It makes a real difference. The students really appreciate, the grade 10 students really appreciate getting to see what a class looks like and what assessment looks like in different areas. And it can often, as much as you would think assessment conversations could maybe put a prospective student off or scare them away, it actually really interests them and excites them. It gets them passionate about what they're going to choose going into grade 11 or grade 12.
It's a great opportunity to look at the process too, right? The what was involved in getting to the point of inquiry. In the personal project in the middle years program, I know a lot of students talked about that what they set out to do didn't work, and that was actually great because in that reflective element they were able to deconstruct it and say, well, this is why it didn't work. This is what I'd do differently next time. And this is really the nature of the world around us, that the sciences, the research that's actually professionally happening right now to solve real world problems. It's not something that just happens overnight. It's not something that we pull out of a toolkit and just say, we'll just apply this and it's going to work. It has to be tested and tested and tested. So that process, things don't come easily, and kids need to know that from day one. Thanks for sharing that there, Stuart. And Stuart's going to share some more here as we move into some of the other elements that we highlight. I think a unique element of the IB is always the core. It's not just the approaches to teaching and approaches to learning, the IB learner profile. How do we integrate the project aspect? So in the extended essay, backward planning from that and infusing that, it's an interest. How do you get kids ready to choose an area of study, to design a question, and to write a 4,000-word paper? It's certainly not going to happen in the second to last year of school. It really has to be something that kids feel confident to do, and just making those things that you're probably already doing much more clear and much more explicit to students can really give them the confidence to step up to something like the full diploma program. Again, putting ourselves into unfamiliar situations. This is an opportunity for students to integrate their interests in their academics. I had one IB coordinator telling me that there was a student that really wasn't considering the diploma, and when they started chatting about some of the things that he was really interested into, he's absolutely fascinated with frogs, particularly frogs from South America, and in a lot of the big forests down there. And so he was really, really interested in particularly poisonous frogs. And she said, well, you could write a paper on that. You could do an investigation. Everything that you're learning, you could put towards your schoolwork. And the kids lit up and said, that sounds awesome, and was convinced just based on that. So extended essay is a really great talking point, and then also a great gauge for us to think, how are we getting kids ready skill-wise to make that step? And as we provide those opportunities, we enhance that student experience and encourage them. Stuart, please direct us here when it comes to the reflective project, which is the core capstone project for the Career Related program.
Yeah, no worries. Quite an interesting story about frogs there. And I think in terms of the reflective project, students are already going to be focused on what their passion is. They're going to be looking at their career-related study and doing a real deep exploration of something they're already excited about. So I think that makes a big difference, and it's certainly a big advantage when we are helping our students through the process, that they have a real interest in what it is they're looking at. Actually, with our current set of CP graduates, a few of them have actually used the reflective project with their university applications. Because it speaks so well to the field that they're going into. It's became part of their applications for university or for work, so it can be useful at that end as well. As you were talking about skills and how we help prepare students for both the EE and the reflective project, one thing that we found that's worked well over the past year or two is having one person looking after both of the projects. We're very lucky that we have a fantastic head librarian who uses time within TOK and PPS, additional scheduled time that we make available for the students, and uses that time to enhance their academic writing, their high quality researching skills, which is obviously not only beneficial for the extended essay or reflective project, but leads to kind of greater success in other areas and in different subjects. But yeah, the reflective project is, for me, it's the real focal point. It's the application of all of the learning and all of the passion and interest in the studies that they're studying.
A lot of people are concerned about the rigor of the career-related program. You know, it's new and it's a new approach to learning. It's really quite innovative, and I know that some of the pathways that you're offering we'll talk about in more depth at the end. But what can you tell us about the rigor of the reflective project?
Yeah, this is a conversation I often have with our head librarian who looks after the project. It really is, if anything, it's equally tough, if not harder in some ways than writing an extended essay, because of the style of writing, because you have to be aware of intercultural understanding, you have to be aware of bias, you have to be able to analyse that and give your point across very clearly, and almost remove all of your own bias from the first part of your writing. It's only when you get to the conclusion you can actually give your point of view backed up and justified by the evidence that you've provided. So in terms of the rigour and the academic side of writing a reflective project, it really isn't any different from doing an extended essay.
I think we touch on ethics from time to time, sort of incidentally in our curriculum. There's lots of ethical situations, ethical dilemmas that are around us all the time. But when a student has to study ethics within the context of a real world environment, such as an industry or a workplace, obviously the impact is huge. What have you seen in terms of the students, rising to the occasion when it comes to these hard topics?
The experience we've had so far is the students love it when it comes to ethical dilemmas and having those debates and discussions, mostly through PPS to begin with, to kind of build up the skills needed to analyse ethical dilemmas. But for me, the best thing that I've seen come out of the reflective project is students reaching out to professionals who are already doing their dream job or already involved in the career-related field they want to move into, to ask questions about what is it like doing this job day to day, what dilemmas do you come across, are there decisions you have to make where you have to consider your own ethics, the ethics of the company you work for, and how that can impact different people. So having students reach out to people who are already doing the jobs that they want to do and involved in those careers, that link is something that's a real positive for me.
And what a great example of students taking charge of their learning and going out there into the world to find out for themselves, and not just relying on school. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Theory of knowledge, I think a lot of the kids that I taught were really either into theory of knowledge or they weren't so into theory of knowledge. So that's what TOK stands for if you're new to the IB. But theory of knowledge is a course where students are exploring the nature of knowledge. How do we know what we know? And they look at it through a lens of various different ways. Like faith is a way of knowing. There's logic, there's art, there's language. and all of these different components in terms of the ways of knowing. But when we're able to put that into real life terms, that really that's the capstone of the theory of knowledge program. The assessment is having the students look at knowledge, areas of knowledge and knowledge questions in the real world and presenting on it. But from taking it out of just one class and putting that into the entire program, this is that interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary connection. The bridge between the sciences and the humanities and the arts all together. So how we communicate to parents and students is maybe we're leaving theory of knowledge out. We talk about what the course is, but what about perhaps putting up some of the knowledge statements or questions that we have from different subject areas? This might be pretty, academic for a general audience to digest if they're not, a chemist or a historian. But maybe even taking these and saying, well, here's what this looks like. Here's some examples, and really taking some time with theory of knowledge and promoting that. In fact, when it comes to the core, Stewart School actually has a really great example on their website of, when you hit the program and you go down to find out what it's about, front and center is the core. And it really is a major attraction for the IB. In the personal professional skills course, Stuart, you were mentioning this before, and I've got the themes that I want to show everybody in a moment, but developing these skills for innovative industries. What are some of the ways that personal professional skills plays a role in the program as a whole?
It's interesting what you said about the website there. Very purposeful on our behalf, because as an IB only school, as an IB4 program school, the core is what kind of unites the learning journey from start to finish. So it is something we do place a very high focus on. In terms of the core skills within PPS, for those who are unfamiliar with the CP, you may be faced with a CP PPS class where you have 10 students and 5 of them have different career related studies. So you might be trying to accommodate students who are interested in sports and sports business, physiotherapy, and then ranging into anything at all from the art and design world. That's the context that we have at the moment. So it can actually be quite challenging in terms of the teaching side of things and being able to accommodate and plan for those individual students and the different skills and techniques that they have to do. So with us, they look at developing their skills from the very beginning, looking at ethics and intercultural understanding. We take that into the context of their career-related field and how the different pathways need different skills for success in those areas. I don't want to go too much into the themes as I know they're going to pop up later on, so I'll leave that for later.
Yeah, or dive in, because we can look at that right now. So we've got the ATL skills categories here as well, the way that students engage in their own learning. How can we make this more student driven? I know that it's new to the diploma program and the career-related program relatively. What are some of the ways that we can engage those students, the students in their own learning experience and skill development? One of the schools that I've talked to is, setting the unit and saying this is the skill domain and the category and the cluster that we're going to be exploring and refining and working on. But then as we go through the rubric for the assessment and the bits and pieces that we're doing in the formative element for that unit, what are the skills that you think you're personally going to need need to work on? Is it aligned with the class and what we're going to do as the whole, or do you think you're going to want to couple your media literacy with the way you collaborate, on this assignment and on this, final unit project that we're working on? So, a great way to actually ask the students to be more involved and engaged in this. And a big part of the approaches to learning, that enhances the student, experience is this idea of being able to transfer the learning from one place to another. Something that really cannot happen unless it's in a program or in a full, curriculum like the IB has designed. So pulling bits and pieces from other different types of resources and curriculum isn't always going to have that continuity. But when students are able to take those ideas, those principles, the skills that they're developing and put them into other situations, this is definitely a major opportunity for students to explore who they are and what they're capable of. So the various skills and knowledge across different contexts there's a range of different ways that we can implement that, by preparing students to combine knowledge. If we're thinking about applying skills and knowledge in unfamiliar situations, how are we scaffolding that so that students are aware that that's what we're aiming for? Maybe we're putting ourselves out there as a group or as a class, or at least with lots of support before we get to the point where students are going to perform on something like that. But they're right across the IB assessment, from the experiences that they have coming into an examination context. Students are always going to be transferring skills. I remember particularly with the psychology paper, with case studies, the students hadn't seen these case studies before, and they really had to understand the nature of the subject. And, even though it was still within the domain of the subject discipline, there was an unfamiliar situation being presented to them. That's just one example, because every course does something like that. But when it comes to the ATL skills that are infused in the career-related program, they become extremely powerful and active as students are pursuing their career studies, their career-related studies. Stuart, what have you noticed about the students and where they've elevated in some of these ATL skills development?
I think the big two that's very noticeable for us is in time management and organisation, specifically through the dual enrolment pathways. We have students who are 16 years old who are starting university classes with some of the partner universities that we work with. And it's a big ask. It's a really, really big challenge at that age to be able to handle that responsibility. In terms of how that student's schedule looks like, it would appear that they have a ton of free time to be carrying on with their studies. But actually, if they can't manage that time and they can't have a lot of self-discipline and intrinsic motivation for their studies, it can become really, really challenging for them. So making sure that our students understand the importance of putting the work in with their time management and organisational skills is something that we put a very big emphasis on, especially right at the very start of our CP Grade 11 pathway.
Great. Depending on your school, depending on the students that you serve, every student needs to know that they're going to be successful in an IB program. And, even though those systems of support might be there, are students aware that they can make use of them? Do they cater to the sorts of, needs that students have? If we are overloading students, how do we find out? How do we support students through that? If the diploma program is really overwhelming for particular students, what are the things that they can do to adjust in order to alleviate some of that pressure and to be able to continue forward, in a way that is, obviously that's important to every human being. Being able to keep going even through those challenging times. We've all experienced that over the last year. But the common perception that the IB is too rigorous. How do we understand what's actually happening? Is there something that we can change and adapt to? Very, very important thing in terms of enhancing our student experience is to really consider those systems of support that we're offering students and making them very, very clear. And we have a really great case study for the diploma program here on talking about the quality of learning, the special attributes of an IB education that stand out, and just also how important it is for teachers to play a role in that. So, we haven't really talked a lot about teachers' role in this, but if teachers are recognized by the student body as the empowerers of choice and flexibility and interest, it's much more appealing to students to know that they're going to be in that kind of care through the next 2 years. So finally, we're just going to touch on the career-related program in a little bit more depth while Stuart's with us, because there are lots of schools that are interested in this, and it's a really great way to enhance the student experience because of that specialized combination between the academic coursework. And even though the career-related program only requires students to take 2 classes, I'm sure, in Stuart's school that students are taking more than 2 because there's no other class to take. They're all, either diploma classes or they're doing their career studies. That's the case right around the world. Very, very few kids just do the minimum. But bringing together like those subjects that maybe they have to do to fulfill requirements, but then some choice, and then having that opportunity to say, this is really what the direction I want to go in, is a great way for students to become have a really great opportunity to grow in their last couple of years of school.
The personalisation and choice that the CP offers is unbelievable. It's absolutely fantastic to be able to sit down with students in grade 10 and have a conversation with them about what they want to do and put that in place for them. One of my favourite things that's happened in the past few years was a student stopped me in the corridor and kind of half jokingly asked why there's not a pathway for aeronautics in CP. And I remember having a conversation about a year back with another CP coordinator who had a partnership set up with Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And then by chance, I ended up speaking to them. And long story short, 3 months later, we implemented CP Aeronautics at WIS for our grade 10 students starting DP or CP this year. So that sort of flexibility and the ability to cater towards student need and the learning community that you work in it's just fantastic. It's really, really useful to be able to do that, and it creates a great overall experience for the students.
And that Embry-Riddle Aeronautics has multiple opportunities. Kids can go straight to flight school, to be either a commercial pilot or to go into other fields within the aeronautics. There's also a business side of it, and I know that the Embry-Riddle university also has aerospace. So they've actually got alum from that university who have directed the International Space Station. They've had all kinds of alum that have done a range of different things, and so it really helps that completing that study isn't going to be restrictive in any way. In fact, it's going to open up more opportunities.
For sure, and the CP graduates that move through the aeronautics pathway, they'll actually graduate from university faster through that path than they would do from doing any other academic programme of study in grade 11 and grade 12. So it really helps when it comes to having those conversations, which do take place about how rigorous is the CP. Stories like this and hearing from graduates from this pathway really helps those conversations.
So here's your opportunity here just to tell us a little bit more about the themes that students explore and connect across their IB diploma program or IB subjects, their courses and their career-related studies, which is separate, and then bringing that all together. What have you got to tell us about this?
No problem. The way we have mapped it out, we begin grade 11 with applied ethics and intercultural understanding. The reason why we like to do this at the beginning of the year is that it feeds into the reflective project. It is very important that students understand the application of ethics and the different theories around that and how it relates to the potential careers that they're going to move into. And the intercultural understanding allows students to see how things work both in their local setting and potentially in different environments that they're going to move into for future study and for future work. So those two themes are really intrinsically linked, and they're a great starting point because it involves a lot of discussion and debate, and it involves talking about different subjects that are perhaps not spoken about much in other classes. So students really enjoy it, and they really have quite strong opinions on different parts of the ethical dilemmas. So it creates a good environment even amongst the cohort of students. after we've looked at applied ethics and intercultural understanding, we focus on personal development, and it speaks a lot to the student's next step. So what they have to do in terms of developing within the career that they want to be involved in. We look at what qualifications they might need outside of their school academics. We look at different routes to where they want to get to, whether that be through college, university, or straight into the world of work. We look at different countries that would be best for them to go and work in, depending on their area and their interest. It's all very personalised to them. It's essentially guided by the teacher and other professionals within the school, but very much personalised development plans for students as they move forward in their learning journey through high school and into their next step.
Awesome.
Sorry if I'm going on a bit too much there. Cut me off if you think. When it comes into effective communication, this would be the first part of what we would do in grade 12. The students say this is their most feared and loved part of PPS, because we look at applications for university, we look at how to build a resume, how to answer emails, and then the fun part for me is trying to teach students how to prepare for an interview, whether that be face-to-face, or recently we've added preparation for online interviews, since that seems to be the way forward at the minute. So this is real practical applications through the effective communication theme for us. It's something that the students enjoy, even though it is extremely challenging. And I should point out that the flexibility within PPS allows schools to take any angle on it that fits their context. So I'm sharing some stories from what's worked for us. It can be completely different in every CP school, which I think is, again, fantastic, because it allows schools to cater for the needs of the students they have in front of them.
Thank you for adding that. That was
no
something that I thought we should really highlight. Thank you.
No worries. And thinking processes just kind of, for us, rounds off the course and focuses students' efforts towards how they think and how they prepare when it's coming up to the DP exams, and then preparing for the changes that come ahead when they graduate from high school.
And you can see the parallel between the approaches to learning skills infused here and a lot of the skills that we know students need when they're approaching DP, or IB assessment on the whole. You've heard Stuart mentioning a couple of the new and innovative pathways that students are choosing, and the flexibility of some of these that are based out of universities means that you don't need to have a teacher in your school who is trained to teach these courses, and you have access to all of those resources that these world-class universities have to offer. For example, the SCAD stands for the Savannah College of Art and Design, which is in Georgia in the United States, in Savannah. And they offer a wide range of career pathways, that students can choose from. They're also able to construct their own majors. This does come at a cost to the students, but we have quite a great arrangement with Savannah College of Art and Design at the moment. So the tuition that students actually would normally pay is actually 50% reduced for Savannah College and Art Design students. We're actually going to be hosting in early May a more in-depth view of the career-related program in a webinar titled "Is the IBCP for Me?" And we'll have a representative from Savannah College of Art and Design there to talk through and to answer your questions on some of those pathways. Might even just spark some ideas for alternative career-related pathway partnerships that we can help you to build. And I would like to announce a really new development. One of my colleagues who is based out of his home office in Vancouver has been talking to Vancouver Animation School for many, many years. For those of you unfamiliar, this university is a very prestigious and well-regarded animation technology school. They have partnerships with Sony Entertainment when it comes to their gaming, PlayStation, things like that. And they have, partnerships with industry right across from Pixar, Disney, and the works. And those industry professionals also teach in these classes, and students that would participate in this Vancouver animation career-related studies pathway would have instruction from those leading artists. So there's both an art and a science side, and the students get a bit of both. And these are university credits; they transfer. And VANAS is also offering direct admission to students if they've been in the career-related program and participated in their pathway. So that's an exciting, and again, Mario from who is the CEO is going to be joining us on that webinar in a couple of weeks' time. Hope that you'll be there to join us too. But hopefully, by talking about the diploma and the career-related program together, when we're thinking about enhancing the student experience and therefore drawing more students into the program, you can see that there's something for every student in the IB, and that's not always easy in various contexts. I know that in particular countries, it's the full DP or nothing, and the career-related program maybe doesn't have the recognition. Whether it's government or university at this point. But I think that as we're starting to understand where learning is moving, how trends are shifting, COVID-19 has taught us we can do a lot virtually. We certainly need to have that face-to-face, on-site experience as well. But hopefully you can see that by pairing the diploma and the career-related program, we can include more students in the diploma in an IB experience, and they really are one unit when a school offers both. So we do have lots more resources to support you. And again, Stuart comes from the Western International School of Shanghai. If you want to look him up and and want to chat to him. The resources that we have, more webinars that are up and coming. Recently, we had a version of the CP1 I mentioned called "Is the DP for Me?", followed by a curriculum, school culture, and equity session that was run and co-facilitated by Dr. Ashley Berner from the Johns Hopkins University Institute for Education Policy. She's a researcher, she's a professor. It was a really great session that's recorded and available for you to see, as well as the tools that were mentioned. And obviously this is part one of the three-part strategies series that we're doing in the next 3 weeks. And also, typing error, it's the CP for me, attracting students to the CP, not the DP. We're not repeating that. It was recorded. Please look for our space on ibo.org. We have a growing range of resources for supporting schools to grow participation in the DP and in the CP. We also are initiating communities. There is a community that's been established for the career-related program already, a group. If you search through groups, please join our group. There are a range of things, especially in the diploma program section right now. And there will be a lot more as we move in the direction of supporting the CP as equitably as we are with the DP. So with that, I want to thank Stuart, and perhaps there will be some questions for Stuart, but if there are questions, Zach?
Yes, absolutely. Here's a question. So at this person's school, and I'm sure this is at many schools, some parents seem to put an emphasis on grades and tend to underestimate the importance of non-academic areas and soft skills. Could you suggest some tips on how to explain the importance of students' holistic development?
Oh, for sure. I think that putting together the approaches to learning framework alongside the learner profile traits and the IB mission statement is a really good start in terms of our IB resources. One of the activities that I've often done with interested schools in my previous role at the IB was to ask them to look at the 10 traits and to take away one. If there was one to be eliminated, what would it be and why? And every time we came to the talk sharing part of the session, the preface was always, I didn't really want to take any of them away. They're all great. They're all important. But it really facilitated a rich discussion on the significance of the learner profile. and then pairing that together with the transferable skills. Being able to pivot, being able to appropriate and adapt your skills in new environments is key for the future of work. And I did mention the World Economic Forum. We have on our slide deck is the DP for me, I believe is a series of slides there. I know that they're also in the group in IB program communities, where it has those those skills for the future lined up, and they can be great talking points too. Again, please reach out to me if you want to have a deeper kind of a chat about that, so I can understand the nuances of your community. Stuart, do you have anything else that you would contribute to that question?
I would just say that the core of each program really is the application of the learning from everywhere else. For the CP, it's the application of the learning from the DP subjects and the career-related studies. So I would just try and stress that the core and the other parts of the program isn't seen as less academic. It's the place where you can apply your learning and give context to everything else that you're experiencing in the programs.
Yeah, and beyond our formal education, that's what we do every day in our work. We're creating things, we're solving problems, and we're engaging in that way. Zach, do we have another question?
We have another question about specific post-secondary program benefits resulting from IB assessment, but I'm thinking maybe we can send out some recognition materials in our follow-up.
That'd be great
to help answer that.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that,
and there's a lot of research actually as well. I really do recommend, just if we are quick, and this has been posted, I think, in the school culture toolkit, and we might post it again in this one. But the study on students in the Chicago public schools, they have a large group of schools, more than 112 programs. Not all of them are diploma programs, but the qualitative elements there of what the students said, comparing themselves, many of them went to selective universities or very reputable public universities. And they talk openly about the difference between their skill sets and the skill sets of others. So I think that the assessment preparation, they do talk about the assessment preparation and how that had a huge impact on their readiness.
And our last question here is, I was wondering how to encourage parents to be actively involved in school community actions in meaningful context. Is inviting parents to a collaborative planning session a good idea?
A collaborative planning session for curriculum might be a little bit of a challenge, but I think that when it comes to personal professional skills development, about even applying skills in various careers, it would be great to even interview parents or have parents talk about their experiences in the workplace. And especially people who have switched careers or switched industries. There are statistics out there that the average young person under 16 today is going to transfer across 15 different jobs in maybe 5 or 6 different industries through their lifetime. So I think that parents can be involved in that way, and providing that real world context. And obviously there's lots of room in the service learning components as well to engage with parents and bring them in.
And it also seems like a good time to plug next week's webinar, How to Market the IB to Students and Parents.
Absolutely. Thank you for plugging that, Zach. If you're interested in joining or you're unable because of the time, it will be recorded. And if you do sign up, we'll be able to send you a link to be able to view the recording and access the materials. My name again is Phil Evans, and here is my contact information, which also there's a form that you can fill out, as I mentioned, on the website. And with that, we'd like to thank you very much for joining us tonight or tomorrow morning, whatever time it is. But thank you very much for being with us, and a special thank you to Stuart. Thank you, Stuart.
Thanks for having us. Much appreciated.